Thank you, Jane. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, so it's a great pleasure for me to be here. It's actually my second public outing since being announced as Chief Executive, and the first one was in this very room. So it's obviously a habit I'm forming. Yeah, look, I wanted to talk to you this afternoon, tell you a little bit about the story of what Blackmores has done in the fish oil space. I figured that would be something. It's a story I'm very keen to tell, and something that this audience could be very interested in. It is obviously a little bit off topic for the session, so apologies for that. I'm happy to talk about our export business in the panel. And actually, in some ways, I think fish oil is in the same way that maybe aged care is, but fish oil is another market for the seafood industry, which is something that could be an interesting conversation around development. But before I start, just a little bit briefly about Blackmores. Probably many of you are familiar with the brand, but we are Australia's leading natural healthcare company. About $700 million in revenue. About 15% of that actually is fish oil, so it's our largest product category. We pride ourselves on the quality standards we set, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And we've grown very significantly over the last sort of 2 or 3 years, particularly driven by export, now to produce annually about 4 billion doses of product, mostly tablets and capsules, which we distribute across the Asia region, Australia and Asia region, to about 25,000 points of distribution. The other side of our business, the other thing that we think sets us apart from our competitors is an absolute commitment to education. So last year we actually had 447,000 touch points across consumers, customers, retailers, and healthcare practitioners. In addition to that, we are recognised as the most trusted supplement brand, both in Australia and in many of the markets we operate in Southeast Asia. Like Tassal, we're an ASX 200 public listed company. We've been on the markets for a little bit longer, for about 35 years, I think. And like Tassal, we have a very strong commitment to the environment and to the communities that we operate in. We're recognised as one of Australia's best employers. And just to give you a sense, we're about 1,000 staff now across Australia, New Zealand and Asia, and actually about 50% of that now is in Asia. 25% of our staff are qualified healthcare practitioners. You probably know us for the brown amber bottle that you see in pharmacy and supermarkets. But actually, we've over the last few years, we've developed to be a house of brands. So the Blackmores brand, as I said, the #1 vitamin dietary supplement brand in Australia and most trusted across the region. But we also have a natural animal health brand, Pure Animal Wellbeing, or PAW. The #1 practitioner brand. So these are vitamins, dietary supplements sold through doctors, naturopaths, etc. That's Bioceuticals. Isoway, a clinical nutrition business, so very much sports nutrition, weight loss products, but very much based on sort of clinical principles that we pride ourselves on. And our recent acquisition is the Fusion products, Fusion and Oriental Botanicals. They're Australia's leading Chinese herbal medicines. Talk to you a little bit about fish oil. We are Australia's #1 fish oil brand, as well as being Australia's #1 natural health product brand. And fish oil is the biggest part of our portfolio. So give you a sense of the scale of it. We sell fish oil, as you've probably seen, in pretty big tubs of products, so either 200 doses, 400 doses. And we sell 3 million of those every year. So it's about 1.5 billion capsules a year. Average size of the capsule about a gram, so about 1,500 tons of fish oil going through our facility each year. We do export fish oil to 10 markets around the region. Talk a little bit about export. We've been in Asia for 35 years, so we've been a long time in Asia. We're in about 14 markets across the region, and we've adopted an approach of going into markets in a very quite a heavy sense, by which I mean we've set up our own subsidiaries with our own people. And as I said earlier, we've got about 50% of our employees, about 500 employees up in those businesses in Asia. The recent story is about the growth of China. And a lot of what Margie was saying earlier is very familiar to us. The benefits seen by Chinese consumers of the clean, green Australian story. We've been an enormous beneficiary of that, and China now accounts for a very significant part of our business, and Asia altogether about 50% of our business. So fish oil, an extremely important product for us. Not only our biggest product range, but the bottom point on the slide there, it's also a really important ingredient in a lot of our other products. So we have heart health products, brain health products, pregnancy products, where fish oil is a really important ingredient in many of those. I'll try to fly through this stuff a little bit, but I thought it was worth just considering the growing body of evidence supporting the consumption of fish oils, either as food or supplements. And I guess you guys are probably aware about that. There's a certain amount of debate raging, in our industry and elsewhere, and not just in fish oil, but about the relative benefits of a supplement versus a whole food product. I guess what I would say is that not very many Australians are consuming the recommended 2 to 5 portions of oily fish per week. We're probably a little bit better in this room than maybe the national average, but there is clearly a place for supplementation in terms of ensuring that people are getting the omega-3 oils that they need. Omega-3 oils, EPA and DHA in particular, are amongst the most studied chemical entities in the world in terms of randomized placebo-controlled trials. So 31,000 scientific articles published, more than 10,000 gold standard placebo-controlled trials. It's more than almost any pharmaceutical drug you might take, and the body of that evidence is highly supportive of the use of omega-3 oils in prevention and treatment of a wide range of conditions, particularly around heart health, brain health, and joint health. Blackmores in particular, as I mentioned, we pride ourselves on the quality of our products. So all of our fish oils come from wild-caught small fish, processed within 24 hours of being caught. We sell fish oil in what's called the triglyceride form. So that's the form that it's available in, the form that it occurs in nature. Many fish oil companies, particularly outside Australia, use an ethyl ester form, which is a chemically converted form. We test every lot at three stages in the chain. Actually, every lot of oil is tested for contaminants and potency, and we submit to a set of limits around things like contaminants that are way higher than are required by the Therapeutic Goods Administration and the Industry Association, GOED. You can read the rest of it. I mean, I guess the point is we go to very great lengths to assure the quality of our product, and we think this does set us apart from some of the competitors out there. Just looking at the fish oil industry a little bit, I mean, it's kind of a little over 20 years old in terms of supplementation, and originally fish oil was a byproduct from the production of fish meal. So around a third of the wild-caught fish, the total harvested catch, goes into fish meal for the animal feed aquaculture industries, and originally fish oil was kind of used to fire the boilers for the fish meal plants, and apologies, this is a sort of illustrative chart, but I've seen the real data, I just couldn't find it. But over a 20 or so year period, the growth in demand for fish oil has significantly outstripped the growth of demand in fish meal. And we're now close to this inflection point. So these lines are expressed as the total demand for that product based on total kilos of wild-caught fish. And at this crossover point, that's the point where fish oil is driving the harvesting of fish rather than fish meal, and that for our industry is a very significant issue, and requires us to take a certain approach. And Blackmores in particular, we pride ourselves very much on our commitment to sustainability, and a very important, across our product base, we're sourcing ingredients from nature. So our impact on those natural systems is something we care about very deeply, and so the idea that those lines might cross and suddenly the harvest of wild fish is being driven by a growing demand for human consumption fish oil is very concerning to us. So we've been on a bit of a sustainability journey. In 2012, we partnered with WWF, and our first commitment with them was that we would use WWF to help us to make sure that the ingredients we were sourcing were the most sustainable sources in the world. And so we've been through our whole product range, including those other condition products that I talked about, and assessed the sustainability of the materials that are going into those products. We've done our own audits of both the Peruvian anchovy fishery and the Antarctic krill fishery. So we actually sent somebody down to Antarctica to assess the harvest happening down there. And we sponsored with WWF a fisheries improvement project in Peru. And what I would say is that prior to being involved with WWF, we thought we were doing a pretty good job. As I say, sustainability has always been something that's been important to us. Our founder, Maurice Blackmore, in the 60s was talking about sustainability. So this is something that's kind of in our DNA. But we had empowered, passionate people making decisions about the sourcing of our products without necessarily all the technical knowledge that perhaps we could have had. So WWF have brought a real rigor to our business in terms of assessing the different sources around the world of crude fish oil. And we have then pushed that back into the supply chain. So, for example, we source a lot of fish from anchovies from Peru. The suppliers of those products typically use the Peruvian and Chilean fisheries, and they'll mix depending on harvest and yield and levels of omega-3 in the product. We've said we won't have any material from Chile, and we've driven the supply chain. A huge issue, obviously created a huge issue in the supply chain, but we now have 100% of our oil coming from Peru and Morocco, which is similarly well managed. And we've developed a very significant sustainable sourcing policy, specifically for fish oil. So we prefer MSC certified fisheries. We can't meet all of our volumes or all of our quality requirements solely from MSC certified fisheries, and that's why we do use Peru and Morocco, neither of which are quite there yet. But as I say, we've been working with the Peruvian fishery, and we're confident they're well on track to reach MSC certification. I'm going to fly a little bit, so you can see a bit about where we source the fish from. So purse seine caught wild anchovies, mostly from Peru and Morocco. They go into crude oil. Once the crude's processed within 24 hours, it goes into crude oil drums, which is one of the reasons it's kind of very, very difficult to deliver traceability in this space. But we then have that oil processed into what we call 1812 standard fish oil, or concentrated. So our main supplier of concentrated oils is in Norway. And then all our oils are encapsulated in Australia and New Zealand and packed in our facility in Australia. I mentioned we sent our quality manager for our ingredient sourcing business down to the Peruvian anchovy harvest to observe that, and to engage with the authorities and the community there. And that's been an enormous benefit to our business. I won't talk about traceability. It's a really difficult thing to do that we have actually managed. So we now trace every lot of fish oil back to a range of catch certificates, and that's a first for our industry. So in summary, those are the sustainability milestones that we've achieved, and I'm being wound up, so I will leave it there. But happy to take questions during the session. Thank you.